Hey, happy campers, Todd here, Great American, and today we're talking about 50 amp, 30 amp service and all these dog bones. Let's check it out. All right, so stay tuned because I'm going to show you a 50 amp plug here in a minute and show you what it should be reading. There's wedding plugs that are 240. A lot of people make a mistake plugging into this or even a 30 amp service into that kind of stuff, and it is the wrong voltage and it will burn up your unit. So we want to make sure we're hooking up the right one to start with, right? So we have 50 amp service here. You're going to have L1, L2. Those are 120 volts. Then your ground is that round one right there, and then your neutral is here at the bottom. If we were to step into or have to drop down to a 30 amp service, so we have a 50 amp female plug right here and a 30 amp plug right here, that's 110 neutral and your ground right there. Now if you plug this in, you have now reduced down to 30 amps of service on your unit, and now we can only operate certain things on our unit. As compared to the 50 amp, we could pretty much run everything on a 50 amp service. You've dropped down to 30, you probably might have one AC, maybe a microwave, so on and so forth. So now you've limited the options that you can use, and you will probably trip some breakers on the pole. And if that happens, well, you just need to learn what you can and can't run. As long as you're just on that 50 amp service for this, you're in good shape. Let's say you drop down from a, let's say you drop down from a 50 to a 110, which is your standard household plug right here. You don't want to operate pretty much anything. You want to stick to just the charging system on there, and that's it. Anything more on this plug, this is going to get hot, more likely trip something out at your house, of course, but this is going to get super hot, super quick, and you're going to cause some damage with all that heat. Now let's talk about 30 amp service, okay? 30 amp service, you're going to have that plug, like I said, one hot leg right there, 120, your neutral and your ground. Now, if we went from a 30 amp to a 15 amp, which is your household plug like this, same thing. You're only wanting to run your charging system and maybe run your refrigerator if it's got 110. If you're on 12 volt on your refrigerator, that's fine. You can do that. But we want to make sure we're not running ACs or anything like that. That stuff's going to get hot. It's going to damage the plug. It's going to damage your unit. A lot of people use extension cords and all that stuff. Those things will get hot and burn up at the plug-ins or at your twist socket on your unit. Anywhere where there's a connection, you're going to have heat buildup because of that amperage crossing through there. So want to be real careful with that. Now, if we are jumping from a 30 amp service, we plug it in, and on the output we have a 50 amp service. Well, we did not gain any power on that system. We still only have a 30 amp service, but now we have been able to plug into a 50 amp service and get power to our unit. It's perfectly fine. Really need to be careful about our plug-ins on that, because no longer is the power pole going to trip out if you are overamping your system. The breakers inside your unit will protect you, but if you are overamping and running both ACs just because it does it, doesn't mean it's right. You're going to create a lot of heat buildup on these plugs, and it can cause a fire. This is all rubber and plastic. You get a little bit of spark and stuff, that stuff will melt and catch fire, okay? Let's take a look at our 50 amp plug-in real quick with our meter and see what that looks like. All right, so we're on AC voltage right here, and that is alternating current, or 110, all right? So like I said, this is going to be your ground, your neutral, then you're going to have L1 and L2 as far as your power. So we're going to stick that in. And as we can see, to ground, we have 120 volts. We flip over to the other side, 120 volts. If we go to our neutral down there at the bottom, same thing, 120 volts. Neutral to our other leg, 100 and, if we can get it in there far enough, 120 volts. All right, so like I said, 120, 120 neutral and ground. If your plug is reading anything other than that, do not plug your system in there. 30 amp service is going to be similar. I don't have one of those plug-ins with me. Right, so I'm going to use this plug as a simulation here. Obviously, it's not 30 amps, but your plug is going to look like this, right? for your 30-amp plug-in. We're going to have our ground, our hot leg right here, 120, and our neutral. So when we plug into that leg, that's going to be our ground. We go to our neutral right here, you should read 120. We go to our ground up here, should read 120. And then if we were going to go from our neutral to our ground right here, should read 0. Very important to go through our electrical systems before we plug them in. Meters are cheap. Go ahead and learn how to use one. Check that system before you plug it in. Your buddy's house, whatever, they may say, oh yeah, I got to plug in. You plug it in, you are going to fry your whole unit if it is the wrong type of power going in. And then also with your dog bones, make sure anytime you're plugging in a 110, you're using the bare minimum, right? Anytime you're plugging into a 30 to a 30, you're still limited, right? They only allow you to do so much. You may have a shed system that sheds some of that power for you, but if you're going from a 50 to a 30, you are going to be limited once again. A 30 to a 50, you need to be careful because that breaker on the pole is no longer going to protect you like that 30 amp service did originally, all right? When we talk about high amperage systems, what are they? Our air conditioners, our refrigerators, our heating elements for our water heaters, if we don't have a tankless, of course, skillets, hair dryers, stuff like that. Those are the things that are going to be a higher amperage than our lights. Our lights are going to pull off a 12-volt system. You're going to have a converter. It's going to pull a little bit of amperage on there whenever it's charging the battery. Our refrigerators that are 12 volts, not going to pull off the 110 system. That's going to pull off of that battery system. As long as you have a good battery, your converter shouldn't be working too hard. Pretty much it on your electrical system for your 110 stuff. Of course, like we said, 12 volt is going to be different. That's going to pull off of that battery system. That's going to be pretty much it. So you're looking at multiple ACs causing a huge amount of high amperage. That's why on 30 amp systems, you're generally only going to see one AC. 50 amp services, you'll have 2 to 3 units on that 50 amp service because it can actually run that amount. Breaker panels completely different, all that stuff. Educate yourself before you start plugging in dog bones and you fry something. Surge protectors are also a great resource to help protect your unit from faulty wiring or the wrong plugs to plug into. And that pretty much covers it. If you got any comments or questions, leave them down below. Make sure you like and follow and keep watching for more here at Great American RV. We'll bring the how-to you.